I caught my wife cheating with a real estate mogul. My exposed video triggered a citywide reckoning. I zipped my suitcase and double-checked that I had everything I needed for my upcoming business trip. As I made my way downstairs, I could hear Laya's voice coming from the kitchen. "Oh, don't worry about Ethan," she said. "He's going to be gone all week. We'll have the place to ourselves." I paused and listened. Who was she speaking to? "I can't wait for our girls' night," Laya added. "It's been too long since we all got together." I relaxed, feeling silly for my brief suspicion. Of course, she was simply planning a get-together with her friends. When I entered the kitchen, Laya quickly ended her call. "Hello, honey," I said, giving her a quick kiss. "Are you all set for your girls' night?" Laya's smile was dazzling. "Absolutely. We're going to have a blast. You know how it goes when the girls get together." I nodded and took an apple from the fruit bowl. "Just don't party too hard. Remember what happened last time?" She laughed and waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, Ethan, you worry too much. We're all grown women. We can handle ourselves." I shrugged and took a bite of my apple. "If you say so. Anyway, I better get going. My flight is in a few hours." Laya hugged me, her perfume lingering in the air. "Have a safe trip, honey. I'll miss you." As I drove to the airport, I couldn't shake the sense that something was wrong. Laya had been distant recently, always on her phone, working as an influencer, but I trusted her. We'd been married for 5 years, and I was certain she loved me. I arrived at the airport and made my way to the check-in counter. The woman behind the desk frowned while typing on her computer. "I'm sorry, Mr. Cooper, but there appears to be an issue with your flight," she said. I leaned forward, concern on my brow. "What kind of issue?" She turned the screen toward me. "Your flight has been canceled due to unexpected weather conditions. We can rebook you for tomorrow, but there are no more flights departing today." I exhaled. "Is there actually nothing available?" She shook her head, apologizing. "I'm afraid not, sir. The storm system is very severe." I thanked her and stepped back from the counter, pulling out my phone to call my boss. "Hello, John." "Yes, it's Ethan. Listen, my flight has been canceled. No, they won't be able to get me out until at least tomorrow." "I know, and I apologize. Is there a way to reschedule the meeting?" After a few minutes of back and forth, we agreed to postpone the trip completely. I hung up, feeling both relieved and frustrated. Then an idea hit me. Why not surprise Laya? I could get some wine, maybe her favorite takeout, and join their girls' night. With a smile, I went back to my car. The drive home was quick, and traffic was mercifully light. I stopped at our favorite wine shop and purchased a bottle of the expensive red Laya loved. When I approached our house, I noticed a few unfamiliar cars parked on the street. I muttered to myself, "That looks like quite the party." I parked a little way down the street, not wanting to spoil the surprise. As I walked toward the house, I could hear music thumping inside. The curtains were drawn, but I noticed flashes of light as if someone had set up a party lighting system. I unlocked the front door and quietly slipped inside. The music was louder now, accompanied by laughter and voices. I placed the wine in my bag and moved toward the living room. That's when I overheard it. A man's voice, low and husky, saying something I couldn't quite understand. My heart started to race. What was happening? I moved closer to the living room, the pit in my stomach growing with each step. The door was slightly ajar, so I peered through the crack. What I witnessed shattered my world. My wife, Laya, was in the arms of another man. They were kissing passionately, their hands caressing each other's bodies. Around them, 3 other women were in various stages of undress, laughing and drinking. I pushed open the door, my hands shaking. "Laya," I said, my voice coming out like a hoarse whisper. The room fell silent, and all eyes turned to me. Laya's face, flushed with alcohol and arousal, turned into a sneer. "Ethan," she said, her voice dripping with contempt, "you're not invited." The man holding her, whom I now recognized as David Cross, a local real estate mogul, laughed. Well, if it isn't the cuckold himself. I stood there frozen as the reality of the situation hit me. My wife, the woman I loved and trusted, had been unfaithful to me, not just cheating, but hosting an orgy in our home. How long? I managed to choke out. Laya rolled her eyes, removing herself from David's arms. "Oh, please, as if you didn't know." One of the other women, who I vaguely recognized as Vanessa Miller, laughed. He had no idea, right? What a pathetic situation. My face burned with humiliation and rage, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. David walked up to me, his smug grin making me want to punch him. "Listen, Ethan, why don't you be a good boy and run along? The adults are having fun here." Something inside me snapped. I pulled out my phone and began recording. "What the hell are you doing?" Laya shrieked and lunged for the phone. I kept it out of her reach. "Getting evidence?" I said with a cold voice. "Now, everyone get out of my house." David laughed. "Or what, you'll cry to mommy?" I met his gaze, letting my rage and disgust show. No, I'm going to take legal action against all of you. I'm sure your wives would be very interested in this footage." The women's smiles faded. They began scrambling for their clothes, suddenly appearing less confident. I turned to Laya. "As for you, don't bother returning. We're finished." She opened her mouth to argue, but I interrupted her. I said, "We're done. Get your belongings and get out. You have until I return to leave, or I'll have you removed without further notice." I turned and walked out of the house, getting into my car. I could hear shouting and arguing from inside. I didn't care. I drove away, my mind racing with plans for revenge. Laya and her friends believed they could humiliate me and get away with it. They were about to discover how mistaken they were. I drove aimlessly for hours, my mind replaying the scene I'd witnessed over and over. The image of Laya in David's arms and the sound of their mocking laughter burned in my mind like a brand. As the initial shock subsided, a cold, calculated anger took its place. I found myself parked at a lookout point that overlooked the city. The lights twinkled below, oblivious to the anguish in my heart. I took out my phone and watched the video I had recorded. The sound of their laughter and cruel words fueled my rage. "You're not invited," Laya's voice sneered in the recording. I gripped the phone more tightly, my knuckles turning white. How long had this been going on? How long had I been the brunt of their jokes? The fool they made fun of behind my back. A notification appeared on my screen, a message from Laya. "Ethan, please come home, we need to talk." I laughed bitterly. She wanted to talk now that she had been caught red-handed. I typed a response, my fingers flying across the keyboard. "There's nothing to talk about. I meant what I said. We're finished." Her response arrived almost immediately. "Don't be like this. It was just a bit of fun." "You're overreacting." My blood boiled. Overreacting? I walked in on my wife having an orgy in her home and she thought I was overreacting? A little fun? I typed back, "Is that what you call betraying your husband and humiliating me in front of your friends? Do not contact me again. My lawyer will be in touch." I turned off my phone, not wanting to see her response. The weight of what had happened came crashing down on me. My marriage was over. The life I'd created, the future I'd envisioned. Everything was gone in an instant. But as I sat there staring out at the city lights, an idea began to form in my head. Laya and her friends believed they could treat me this way and get away with it. They were about to discover how mistaken they were. I started my car and headed to a nearby hotel. I needed a place to think and plan. When I checked in, the receptionist gave me a concerned look. "Are you okay, sir?" she asked. "You seem upset." I forced a smile. "I'm fine. Just had a long day." In my room, I sat at the desk and opened my laptop. It was time to collect information. I started with David Cross, the arrogant jerk who had been all over my wife. A quick search revealed that he was a well-known real estate mogul known for his flashy lifestyle and questionable business practices. Next, I looked up Laya's friends, Vanessa Miller, Sophie Lang, and Rachel Green. On the surface, they all appeared to lead perfect lives, loving husbands, successful careers, and active social media presences. But I knew better now. I knew the rot that lurked beneath their polished exteriors. As I dug deeper, I realized I needed assistance. This level of in-depth investigation was beyond my abilities. That's when I remembered Sam Parker, an old college friend who had gone into private investigation. I hadn't spoken with him in years, but if anyone could help me, it was Sam. I found his number and dialed it, my heart pounding as the phone rang. "Parker Investigations," a gruff voice answered. "Sam, this is Ethan. Ethan Cooper." There was a pause. "Ethan? Damn, it's been a while. What can I do for you?" I took a deep breath. "I need your help, Sam. It's about my wife and some of her friends." Sam's tone became more serious. "What happened, Ethan?" I told him everything, the canceled flight, returning home early, and the shocking scene I'd stumbled upon. As I spoke, my voice trembled with a combination of anger and pain. "Jesus, Ethan," Sam said when I finished. "That's rough." "I'm sorry, man. I need information, Sam," I said, my voice hardening. "Everything you can learn about Laya, David Cross, and her friends. I want to know every skeleton in their closet, every dirty secret they're keeping." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Ethan, why do you want vengeance so badly?" I gripped the phone more tightly. "They humiliated me, Sam. They laughed at me, calling me weak and gullible. I won't let them get away with it." Sam sighed. "Okay, Ethan. I'll help you, but promise me you won't do anything illegal. I don't want to see you get into trouble. I promised, even though I wasn't sure I could keep it." "How soon can you start?" "I'll start right away," Sam replied. "Give me a few days to find what I can. I'll call you when I have something." After hanging up, I leaned back in my chair, feeling a ray of hope for the first time since I'd walked in on Leia and her companions. They thought they knew me. They assumed I was weak and easily dismissed. They were about to discover how mistaken they were. I spent the next few days in a state of anger and determination. I ignored Leia's increasingly desperate calls and messages. I contacted a divorce lawyer and began the process of ending my marriage. On the fourth day, Sam called. "Ethan, I have something," he said. "You may want to sit down for this." I settled into a chair, my heart racing. "I'm ready, Sam. Tell me everything." What Sam told me over the next hour made my blood run cold. David Cross, it turned out, was involved in far more than just shady real estate transactions. There were rumors of money laundering and bribes paid to city officials to overlook building code violations. Leia's friends had far from perfect lives. Vanessa Miller had been embezzling from her company for several years. Sophie Lang was addicted to prescription painkillers and frequently traded sexual favors for pills. Rachel Green had an affair with her teenage stepson. "Jesus," I muttered as Sam finished his report. "They're all monsters." "What will you do with this information, Ethan?" Sam asked, his voice full of concern. I stared out the window, my thoughts racing with possibilities. "I'm going to make them pay, Sam. I'm going to show the world who they really are." "Ethan," Sam cautioned, "be careful. These people are wealthy and influential. They could ruin your life if they wanted to." I laughed, a cold, humorless sound. "They already did, Sam. Now it's my turn." As I hung up the phone, a plan began to emerge in my mind. Leia and her friends believed they were untouchable. They thought they could do whatever they wanted without consequences. They were about to discover how mistaken they were. I opened my laptop and started writing, recounting every detail of what had happened and every piece of information Sam had discovered. When I finished, I had a document that would shatter their carefully crafted facades. My finger hovered over the send button. Once I did this, there was no turning back, but I remembered the sound of their laughter and the cruel glint in Leia's eyes as she told me I wasn't invited. I pressed send. The document was distributed to the husbands of Leia's friends, David Cross's business partners, and local news outlets. I sat back, my heart pounding, waiting for the storm to erupt. It didn't take long. Within hours, my phone was buzzing with notifications. The scandal caused an uproar on social media. I watched from a distance, as their idyllic lives crumbled around them. Leia called, her voice frantic. "Ethan, what did you do? How could you do this to me?" I laughed. "How could I? How could you, Leia? You brought this upon yourself." As I hung up, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The road ahead would be difficult, I knew that. However, for the first time since that fateful night, I felt in control. Leia and her friends had assumed they could walk all over me. They were about to discover how wrong they were. The next morning, I awoke with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in years. The initial shock and pain of Leia's betrayal had turned into a cold, unwavering resolve. I checked my phone and scrolled through the notifications. The story had taken off overnight, just as I'd hoped. I opened my laptop and started digging deeper. Sam's information had been extremely valuable, but I knew there had to be more. I started with David Cross, the smug bastard who had been all over my wife. A quick search turned up a wealth of negative press, complaints from tenants about unsafe living conditions, and whispers of bribery and corruption. I compiled it all into a dossier that painted a damning picture of the man Leia chose over me. Next, I focused my attention on Vanessa Miller. Her company's stock had plummeted following the discovery of her embezzlement. I found forum posts from angry investors demanding answers. I added their comments to my growing file. Sophie Lang's addiction had made front-page headlines. I discovered old police reports, incidents that had been overlooked as her influential family discreetly concealed DUIs and public intoxication. Not anymore. And Rachel Green, her affair with her stepson, had set off a firestorm of controversy. I found social media posts from outraged parents at the boys' school calling for her to be fired from her position as a teacher. As I gathered all this information, a plan began to form in my mind. Exposing their secrets was only the first step. Now I needed to ensure they felt the full consequences of their actions. I picked up the phone and called Sam's number. He answered on the second ring. "Ethan, what's up?" "Sam, I need more," I said, my voice tight and determined. "We've only scratched the surface." Sam sighed. "Ethan, don't you think you've done enough? The story is everywhere. Their lives are in shambles." "That's not enough," I growled. "I want to know everything. Every dirty secret, every skeleton in their closet. Can you do this for me?" There was a long pause. "Ethan, this is dangerous territory. These people have money and connections. They could ruin your life." I laughed bitterly. "They already did, Sam. Now it's my turn." Will you help me or not? Another pause. Okay, Ethan, but promise me you'll be careful. I'll dig deeper, see what else I can find. Thank you, Sam. I owe you. After hanging up, I returned to my laptop. I had work to do. I started by creating fake social media accounts, intending to use them to spread the word further. As I worked, my phone received a text from Leia. Ethan, please, we need to talk. This has gone too far. I ignored it, concentrating on my task. Hours passed as I meticulously constructed my case against them, gathering evidence and strategizing my next steps. By nightfall, I had a comprehensive plan. I'd release the information in stages, maximizing damage, first their personal lives, then their careers, and finally, their reputations. As I closed my laptop, a smile appeared on my face. Leia and her friends believed they knew me. They were about to discover how mistaken they were. The next morning, I awoke early, ready to put my plan into action. I checked my phone and saw several missed calls from Leia and her friends. I deleted them without listening. I called Sam. "Morning, Ethan," he answered, sounding tired. "I have more for you." "Let's hear it," I replied, sitting up straighter. "David Cross has bribed city officials to overlook code violations in his properties. I have names, dates, and amounts. It's all here." My heart raced. Perfect. What else? Vanessa Miller's embezzlement goes deeper than we suspected. She's been funneling money into offshore accounts for years. And Sophie Lang's pill addiction is only the tip of the iceberg. She's been visiting some high-end escort services, spending thousands of dollars each month. I nodded, taking notes. "And Rachel?" Sam hesitated. "Rachel had an affair with her stepson, Ethan. There's evidence it began before he was of legal age. We're talking potential criminal charges here." My blood ran cold. "Jesus, these people, Sam." Sam's voice was serious. "This is huge. Are you sure?" I remembered Leia's sneering face and David's mocking laughter. "I'm sure, Sam. They brought this on themselves." After hanging up, I spent the next few hours collecting the new information. By midday, I was prepared. I started with David Cross. I shared the bribery information with a local investigative journalist I knew. Within hours, it made headline news. Next, I anonymously informed Vanessa's company about her offshore accounts. I watched with satisfaction as the company's stock fell. I sent evidence of Sophie's escort service visits to her husband and parents. Her pristine social image would never recover. And Rachel, I paused. The legal implications were serious. Finally, I decided to forward the information to the school board and let them handle the situation. As the day progressed, my phone exploded with notifications. The story was everywhere. Late that night, my hotel room door was being pounded on. I opened it and found Leia, her eyes wild and mascara running down her face. "How could you?" she screamed, pushing past me into the room. "You've ruined everything." I closed the door calmly. "I ruined everything? That's rich coming from you." Leia whirled at me. "It was just a bit of fun. You didn't have to ruin our lives over it." "A little fun?" I said in a dangerously low voice. "You humiliated me. You and your friends treated me like a joke. So who's laughing now, Leia?" She collapsed onto the bed and sobbed. "Please, Ethan, make it stop. I'll do anything." I looked at her. I had once loved this woman, and now I harbored only cold contempt for her. "It's too late for that, Leia. You made your choice. Now accept the consequences." I went to the door and opened it. "I want you to leave. We're finished, Leia, for good." As she stumbled out, still crying, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The game wasn't over yet, but I was winning, and I planned to see it through to the bitter end. The morning after my confrontation with Leia, I awoke feeling strangely refreshed. I checked my phone and scrolled through the barrage of notifications. The story had exploded overnight, exactly as I'd planned. I called Sam, eager for an update. "Morning, Ethan," he answered, his voice groggy. "You're up early." "Can't sleep," I replied. "What's the latest?" Sam sighed. "It's chaos out there, man. David Cross is under multiple investigations. The feds are now involved. Vanessa Miller has been suspended pending an internal audit. Sophie Lang's husband filed for divorce this morning. And Rachel, well, the police are investigating the situation with her stepson." I nodded. "Good. They're getting what they deserve." "Ethan," Sam's voice was hesitant. "Don't you think this is enough? You've made your point." I gripped the phone more tightly. "No, Sam, it's not enough. Not yet." After hanging up, I opened my laptop and went to work. I had more ammunition to deploy. First, I focused on David Cross. I'd withheld some of the most damning evidence, waiting for the right moment. Now, I leaked documents proving he knowingly rented out apartments with dangerous mold infestations, putting families at risk. Next, I turned to Vanessa Miller. I released emails revealing she had been cooking the books for years, implicating several other high-ranking executives in her company. For Sophie Lang, I had saved the most shocking revelation for last. I anonymously informed a tabloid about her secret love child hidden away at a private Swiss school. And Rachel, I paused again. The situation with her stepson was already tense, but I remembered her cruel laugh and the disdain in her eyes. I sent an anonymous email to the local news station, implying the full scope of her relationship with the boy. My phone buzzed incessantly while I worked. I ignored calls from Leia and her friends, but one name caught my attention: David Cross. Curiosity got the better of me. I answered. "You son of a—" David's voice was a low growl. I laughed coldly, without humor. "I'm not doing anything to you, David. Your own actions are catching up to you. I'll destroy you," he snarled. "When I'm done with you, you'll wish you were never born." "Bring it on," I said, my voice steady. "You've already taken everything from me. I have nothing more to lose." I hung up, my heart racing. David's threat should have frightened me, but instead, it fueled my determination. I wasn't about to back down now. Hours passed as I continued to strategically release information, watching the chaos unfold. By evening, my phone was ringing nonstop. I ignored most of the calls, but when Sam's name appeared on the screen, I answered. "Ethan, things are out of control," Sam said, his voice urgent. "There are reporters camped outside your home. Leia is being hounded everywhere she goes. David Cross is issuing threats. You have to be careful. I appreciate your concern, Sam, but I can handle myself." After hanging up, I sat back and considered my next move. The seeds of discord had been planted. It was time to watch them grow. I ordered room service and settled in for the night, my laptop open, keeping an eye on the aftermath. As I ate, my phone vibrated with a text from an unknown number. "We need to talk. Meet me at the Bluebird Cafe tomorrow at 2 p.m. Come alone. Vanessa Miller." I stared at the message, considering my options. It could be a trap, but my curiosity was piqued. What did she want? I typed a reply, "I'll be there." The next day, I arrived at the Bluebird Cafe early and chose a table with a good view of the entrance. Vanessa walked in at exactly 2 p.m. She looked awful, her usual polished appearance replaced with dark circles under her eyes and disheveled hair. She slid into the seat across from me, her eyes darting around nervously. "Ethan," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "you've got to stop this." I leaned back and studied her. "Why should I?" Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. "You don't understand. These people, they're dangerous. David Cross, he isn't who you think he is." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, who is he?" She looked around again before leaning in closer. "He has connections, Ethan. Dangerous ones. The kind of people who make problems disappear." "Are you threatening me, Vanessa?" I asked, my voice cool. She shook her head furiously. "No, I'm warning you. For your own good. Please, Ethan, let this go before anyone gets hurt." I stood up and looked down at her. "The only people who get hurt are those who deserve it. You made your bed, Vanessa, now lie in it." I walked out of the cafe, hearing Vanessa's muffled sobs behind me. I had no sympathy. They had shown me no mercy, so why should I show them any? Back in my hotel room, I took out my phone and dialed Sam's number. "Sam, I need you to look into David Cross's connections. Vanessa hinted at something dangerous. I want to know what we're dealing with." Sam sighed deeply. "Ethan, maybe it's time to back off. You've made your point." "No," I replied firmly. "I'll see this through to the end. Will you help me or not?" There was a long pause before Sam responded. "All right, I'll see what I can dig up, but Ethan, be careful. This is getting serious." I hung up, feeling a mix of excitement and apprehension. The game was escalating. The stakes were rising, but I was ready. Leia and her friends had underestimated me once. They wouldn't make that mistake again. The next morning, I woke to the sound of my phone buzzing constantly. I grabbed it and squinted at the screen. It was Sam. "Ethan, turn on the news now." I fumbled for the remote and turned on the television. My jaw dropped when I saw the headline scroll across the bottom of the screen. "David Cross, real estate mogul, arrested in massive corruption scandal." In an unexpected twist, the news anchor's voice filled the room. David Cross, a prominent real estate developer, was arrested early this morning on charges of bribery, fraud, and racketeering. According to sources close to the investigation, anonymous tips helped uncover a vast network of corruption involving city officials and dangerous criminal elements. I sat back, a combination of satisfaction and disbelief washing over me. I had started the ball rolling, but this exceeded my wildest expectations. My phone buzzed again. It was Leia. "What did you do?" Her voice was shrill and panicky. "The cops were just here, Ethan. They're asking questions about David. This is about all of us." I laughed, a cold, humorless sound. "I haven't done anything, Leia. The truth is finally coming out, that's all." "You bastard," she hissed. "You've ruined everything. I'll never forgive you for this." "Funny," I replied, my voice hard. "I was thinking the exact same thing about you." I hung up, returning my attention to the television. The story was everywhere, dominating every channel. David Cross's face was plastered across the screen, his usual smug expression replaced with shock and fear as he was led away in handcuffs. As the day went on, more details emerged. Vanessa Miller had been detained for questioning. Sophie Lang's husband had revealed her infidelities, casting a negative light on her character. And Rachel, the police were now officially investigating her relationship with her stepson. I watched it all unfold with satisfaction, knowing they had believed they were untouchable, that they could do whatever they wanted without consequence. They were realizing how wrong they were. Mid-afternoon, my phone rang again. It was Sam. "Ethan, this is getting out of hand," he said, his voice tight with concern. "David Cross's arrest. There's talk about mob connections. This is dangerous territory." I paced the room, adrenaline coursing through my veins. "Sam, I'm not backing down. They brought this upon themselves." Sam sighed deeply. "I understand you're hurt, Ethan, but this vendetta is consuming you. Is it really worth it?" I paused, considering his words. Was it worth it? I remembered Laya's sneering face, David's mocking laughter, and the humiliation I'd felt. "Yes," I replied firmly. "It's worth it." After hanging up, I went back to my laptop. The story spread like wildfire across social media. I had created several anonymous accounts, which I now used to fan the flames, dropping hints and spreading rumors. As evening fell, I ordered room service and sat in front of the television. The scandal continued to dominate the news. Experts were brought in to discuss the implications and speculate about the depth of the corruption. My phone vibrated with a text from an unknown number. "You think you've won? This isn't over. Watch your back." I stared at the message, a shiver running down my spine. Was it from David, one of his associates? For the first time, a glimmer of doubt entered my mind. Had I gone too far? I shook off the feeling. No, I couldn't back down now. I was in too deep. I needed to see this through to the end. The next morning, I awoke early and went out to see the consequences for myself. As I walked down the street, I could feel people staring at me. They whispered, pointing. The story had spread beyond the news and had become the talk of the town. I passed Laya's favorite coffee shop. Through the window, I could see her sitting alone with her head in her hands. For a brief moment, I felt a twinge of nostalgia, not regret. Then I remembered her cruel words and mocking laughter, and the emotion faded away. As I turned the corner, I almost ran into Vanessa Miller. She looked awful, her eyes red-rimmed and wild. "You," she hissed, grabbing my arm. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" I shook her off, my voice cold. "Vanessa, I've done nothing but expose the truth. You did this to yourself." She laughed, a high-pitched, hysterical sound. "The truth, Ethan? You don't know the half of it. You've stumbled into something much bigger than you realize. David's friends, they're not the kind of people you want to cross." I felt a tinge of unease, but I pushed it down. "Is this a threat?" Vanessa's eyes darted about nervously. "This is a warning for your own good, Ethan. Back off before it's too late." As she hurried away, I stood still, her words echoing in my mind. For a moment, I considered heeding her warning. But then I thought about everything they'd done, everything they'd taken from me. No, I couldn't stop now. I was going to see this through, whatever the cost. I took out my phone and dialed Sam's number. "Sam, I need you to dig deeper into David Cross's connections. There's more going on here than we realize." Sam's voice was hesitant. "Ethan, maybe it's time to take a step back. This is getting dangerous." I gripped the phone tighter. "No, Sam, I'm seeing this through. Can you help me or not?" After a long pause, Sam sighed. "Okay, but be careful, Ethan, I mean it." After hanging up, I returned to my hotel room. The streets were alive with gossip. I overheard conversations as I walked. "Have you heard about David Cross?" I knew there was something off about that Leia woman. Poor Ethan Cooper. Could you imagine walking in on that? I smiled. They had no idea. Back in my room, I turned on the television. The scandal continued to dominate the news. A reporter stood outside the police station where David was being detained. According to sources close to the investigation, Mr. David Cross may be involved in organized crime. The extent of these connections is still unknown, but I leaned forward, listening carefully. This was new information. Had Sam discovered anything? My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Leia, we need to talk now. Meet me at our spot in an hour." I stared at the message, considering my options. It could be a trap, but my curiosity got the better of me. I texted back a simple okay and prepared to leave. An hour later, I arrived at our destination, a small park where Leia and I used to picnic when we first started dating. She was already there, pacing nervously. "Ethan," she said as I approached, her voice shaking, "you've got to stop this." I laughed. "What's the point, Leia? I'm not doing anything. The truth is coming out, that's all." She grabbed my arm, her eyes wild. "You don't understand. David, he's dangerous, more dangerous than you realize." I shook her off. "Is this a threat?" she hissed. "This is a warning for your own good. Please, Ethan, I know I hurt you, but this is too much. People are going to get hurt." I stared at her, looking for any trace of the woman I had loved. I saw only fear and desperation. "You should have thought of that before you humiliated me," I replied coldly. "You made your choices, Leia. Now deal with the consequences." As I walked away, I could hear her pleading behind me, but I didn't look back. I couldn't afford to show weakness now. I returned to the hotel and found Sam waiting for me in the lobby. "We need to talk," he said, pushing past me into the room. Up in my room, Sam spread a series of documents across the bed. "David Cross isn't just involved with the mob," he said. "He's a key player. Money laundering, extortion, you name it. And Ethan, he has people in high places, judges, politicians, even some cops." I felt a shiver go down my spine. "What are you saying, Sam?" He looked at me, his eyes serious. "Ethan, I think you've stepped into something dangerous. These people don't play by the rules. They'll do anything to protect themselves." I sat down heavily on the bed. "So what do we do? We need to be strategic about this. We can't stop now, but we need to be cautious. I have some contacts in the FBI. Maybe it's time to bring them in." I nodded slowly. "Do it. But Sam, be careful. I don't want you caught in the crossfire." He gave me a wry smile. "Too late for that, buddy. We're in this together now." As Sam left to make his calls, I turned my attention to the television. The news broadcast footage of David being led into court for his bail hearing. He looked miserable, his usual confidence gone. For a brief moment, I felt a sense of accomplishment. Then I recalled Leia's warning and felt a surge of determination. They had tried to break and humiliate me. Now it was their turn to feel the pain. No matter what it took, I was going to see this through to the end. The next few days were a blur of news reports, covert meetings with Sam, and an ever-present sense of unease. The scandal had exploded beyond my wildest expectations, engulfing not only Leia and her friends but also the highest levels of local government. I was in my hotel room scrolling through the latest news updates when my phone rang. The number was unknown. "Hello?" I answered cautiously. "Is this Ethan Cooper?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes, who is this?" "My name is Jessica Reynolds. I'm an attorney. I've been following your case and I think we should talk." I paused. "What about?" "About protecting you, Mr. Cooper, and ensuring justice is served." We agreed to meet at a small cafe the following day. I hung up with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Was this another trap, or could it be the ally I needed? The next morning, I arrived early at the cafe and chose a table with a good view of the entrance. At exactly 10 a.m., a woman entered. She was tall with short dark hair and sharp eyes that scanned the room before focusing on me. "Mr. Cooper?" she asked, holding out her hand. "Jessica Reynolds." I shook her hand. "Please, call me Ethan. What can I do for you, Miss Reynolds?" She sat down, her posture upright and professional. "It's not what you can do for me, Ethan. It's what I can do for you. I specialize in cases of corruption and organized crime, and from what I've seen, you're in the middle of a dangerous situation." I leaned back and studied her. "And why do you want to help me?" Jessica's eyes flashed. "I've seen too many people get away with this kind of behavior. The rich and powerful think they're above the law. It's time someone stood up to them." I nodded slowly. "All right, I'm listening. What's your plan?" For the next hour, Jessica outlined a plan. She would act as my legal representative, helping me navigate the complex web of lawsuits and countersuits that were bound to arise. More importantly, she had connections with federal prosecutors who were interested in the case. "This is more than a simple scandal, Ethan," she explained. "We're talking RICO charges and potential indictments of public officials, but it'll be a long, tough fight." I met her gaze steadily. "I'm not afraid of a fight." She smiled, a sharp, predatory expression. "Good, because they'll throw everything they've got at you." As we parted ways, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. With Jessica on my side, I finally saw a clear path forward. Over the next few weeks, the case exploded. David Cross was indicted on several federal charges. Vanessa Miller turned state's witness, revealing a complex web of fraud and embezzlement spanning several major corporations. Sophie Lang's husband came forward with damning evidence of her infidelity and drug use. And Leia, she was a ghost. She had vanished from public view, her social media account silent. Part of me wondered where she was and what she was doing, but I pushed those thoughts away. I couldn't afford to be distracted now. One evening, while I was reviewing documents with Jessica in my hotel room, there was a knock on the door. I opened it to see Sam looking haggard and nervous. "Ethan, we need to talk," he said, pushing past me into the room. Jessica stood up. "Who is this?" "It's okay," I reassured her. "This is Sam, a friend. He's been helping me." Sam paced the room. "Ethan, things are spiraling out of control. I've been getting threats. Someone broke into my office last night. I felt a shiver go down my spine. Are you okay? Did they take anything?" He shook his head. "I'm fine, and no, they didn't get anything important. But Ethan, this is serious. These people aren't playing around." Jessica stepped forward. "Mr. Sam, is it? I'm Jessica Reynolds, Ethan's lawyer. I think it's time we brought you under our legal protection." Sam looked at her, then at me. "Legal protection? Ethan, what have you gotten us into?" I put a hand on his shoulder. "We're doing the right thing, Sam. We're exposing the truth." He laughed bitterly. "The truth, Ethan? Do you remember why we started this? It was about Leia, about what she did to you. Now look at us. For Christ's sake, we're taking on the mob." His words hit me like a punch to the stomach. He was right. How had things gotten so out of control? Jessica cleared her throat. "Gentlemen, I understand this is personal for both of you, but we need to stay focused. We're on the verge of exposing one of the biggest corruption cases this city has ever seen. We can't back down now." I looked at Sam and saw fear in his eyes. Then I remembered Leia's mocking laughter and David's smug expression. "She's right," I said. "We can't stop now, Sam. I'm sorry you got dragged into this, but we're doing the right thing. We need to see it through." Sam gave me a long look before nodding slowly. "All right, but Ethan, be careful. Don't lose yourself in this." As Sam left, I turned to Jessica. "He's right, you know. This has grown far beyond what I expected." She placed a hand on my arm, her touch surprisingly gentle. "That's how it goes, Ethan, but you've started something important, something that could make a real difference." I looked at her, and for the first time, behind her professional demeanor, I saw a passion and determination that mirrored my own. "Thank you," I said softly, "for everything." She smiled, a genuine smile this time, not the sharp, predatory one I'd seen before. "We're in this together, Ethan, until the end." As I lay in bed that night, unable to sleep, I reflected on how much my life had changed. In just a few weeks, I'd lost my wife, my home, and my sense of security. But I'd also gained something, a purpose, a mission. And as I drifted off to sleep, I realized that for the first time since that fateful night, I felt a sense of hope. The morning sun streamed through the hotel room curtains, jolting me awake from a restless sleep. I reached for my phone and scrolled through the notifications that had accumulated overnight. More details about the scandal, more revelations, more arrests. A knock on the door startled me. I opened it and found Jessica, her usual professional demeanor tinged with excitement. "We've got something big, Ethan," she said, pushing past me into the room. "The feds are closing in on David Cross today. They're going to flip him." I blinked, trying to process the information. "Flip him? You mean he's going to talk?" Jessica nodded. "In exchange for a reduced sentence, he's going to give up everyone, politicians, judges, business leaders. This is going to be a bloodbath." I sat down heavily on the bed. "Jesus, what do we do now?" Jessica's eyes gleamed. "Now we prepare for the storm, because when David starts talking, all hell will break loose." We spent the next few hours strategizing, preparing statements, and communicating with Jessica's contacts at the prosecutor's office. By mid-afternoon, David Cross had, in an unexpected turn of events, agreed to cooperate with federal authorities. My phone buzzed with a text from Leia. "Turn on the TV now." Curious, I turned on the news. My jaw dropped when I saw Leia on screen, standing at a podium surrounded by reporters. "What the hell?" I muttered. Jessica moved closer, her gaze narrowing. "What is she doing?" On screen, Leia began to speak, her voice steady but her eyes wild. "I know many of you have questions about the recent events involving my husband, Ethan Cooper, and our friends. I'm here to set the record straight." I leaned forward, my heart pounding. "Ethan Cooper is not the victim he claims to be," Leia continued. "He's a manipulative, vindictive man who has orchestrated this entire scandal for personal gain." Jessica cursed under her breath. "She's trying to get ahead of the story and discredit you before David's testimony goes public." I could barely hear her, my eyes fixed on the screen as Leia continued her character assassination. "Ethan has always been jealous of our success and our friends. When he found out about our indiscretion, he saw an opportunity for revenge. He's fabricated evidence, manipulated the media, and used his connections to harm innocent people. I felt a surge of rage. Innocent? Was she serious? Jessica put a hand on my arm. Don't let her get to you, Ethan. This is a desperate move. Across the screen, Laya's gaze seemed to bore into me. I'm calling on the authorities to investigate Ethan Cooper's finances and relationships. You'll find he's the real criminal here. As Laya finished her statement, the room erupted with reporters' questions. I turned off the television, my hands shaking with rage. That lying, manipulative... I couldn't even finish the sentence. Jessica was already on her phone. I'm calling the prosecutor's office. We need to get ahead of this. I paced the room, my thoughts racing. She's trying to turn this around on me, make me the bad guy. Jessica looked up from her phone. It won't work, Ethan. We have too much evidence. David's testimony will bury them all. I stopped pacing as a thought struck me. Unless what? Jessica asked, her voice sharp. Unless it's a distraction, I said slowly. What if they're trying to buy time, destroying evidence, or getting people out of the country before David talks? Jessica's eyes widened. You might be right. She was back on the phone in an instant. We need to move now. The next few hours were a blur of activity. Jessica worked with the prosecutors and FBI to push them to act faster. I worked with Sam, going through our files for any information that could be useful. As night fell, we got the news we'd been waiting for. David Cross had begun his testimony, and it was even more damning than we'd expected. I sat in Jessica's office, watching the news unfold on her computer screen. David, looking haggard and defeated, spilled secret after secret as names were named and deals were exposed. A vast network of corruption was laid bare. We did it, I muttered, almost in disbelief. Jessica squeezed my shoulder. You did it, Ethan. You started it all. I looked up at her, seeing admiration in her eyes. I felt a flicker of something. Attraction, connection, but I pushed it aside. Now wasn't the time. What happens now? I asked. Jessica sat down beside me. Now the real work begins. Trials, testimonies, more investigations. This will have long-term consequences. I nodded slowly. Laya, the others, they'll be brought in for questioning. Jessica nodded. Laya's little press conference stunt could be used against her. Obstruction of justice, maybe. I leaned back in my chair, feeling both exhausted and exhilarated. Is it really over? Jessica smiled, a rare, genuine expression. This part is over, but Ethan, you started something huge here, something important. Are you ready for what's next? I met her gaze, feeling a surge of determination. Bring it on. We sat there watching the news unfold, and I realized it wasn't just about vengeance anymore. It wasn't even about Laya or her betrayal. This was about justice, about exposing the truth, no matter the cost. And for the first time in a long time, I felt fully alive. The weeks following David Cross's testimony were a blur of activity. Arrests were made, indictments were issued, and the city was in an uproar. Through it all, Jessica and I worked tirelessly, providing evidence, making statements, and navigating the complex legal landscape. As I sat in Jessica's office one morning reviewing documents, she looked up with a triumphant gleam in her eyes. We've got her, Ethan, she said. Laya's been arrested. I stood up, my heart racing. What? When? This morning. The feds picked her up at her parents' house. It turns out she was more involved in David's schemes than we suspected. I sank back into my chair, a wave of emotion washing over me. What will happen now? Jessica sat on the edge of her desk. Now we prepare for the trial. It's going to be huge. Ethan, your testimony will be crucial. I nodded slowly. I'm ready. Whatever it takes to see justice done. Over the next few months, I worked closely with Jessica and the prosecutors to prepare for the trial. We spent hours reviewing evidence, practicing my testimony, and strategizing. One evening, as we finished a particularly grueling session, Jessica gave me a soft look. You know, Ethan, I've never seen anyone handle this kind of pressure like you have. You're remarkable. I felt a warmth spread through my chest. I couldn't have done it without you, Jessica. You've been amazing. She smiled, and for a brief moment the professional facade fell away. I saw the woman behind the lawyer and felt drawn to her in a way I hadn't in years. Jessica, She raised a hand. Ethan, please. Let's get through this trial first, then we can talk about what comes next. I nodded, understanding. We needed to stay focused. There would be time for personal matters later. The trial became a media sensation. Day by day, I sat in the courtroom watching as Laya, David, and their accomplices were exposed for who they truly were. When it was my turn to testify, I felt a calm resolve wash over me. Mr. Cooper, the prosecutor began, Can you tell us what happened the night you discovered your wife's infidelity?" I took a deep breath and began speaking. I told the court everything, from the canceled flight to the shocking scene I'd witnessed. I described the mocking laughter, the cruel words, and the utter humiliation I felt. As I spoke, I felt Laya's gaze on me, but I didn't look at her. She no longer held any power over me. After weeks of testimony and deliberation, the verdicts came in. Guilty. All of them. Laya, David, Vanessa, Sophie, Rachel, they were all headed to prison. As we left the courthouse, reporters swarmed around us. "Mr. Cooper, how do you feel about the verdict?" I looked at Jessica, who gave me an encouraging nod. "Justice has been served," I said firmly. "Not just for me, but for everyone who was hurt by their actions. It's time for our city to heal and move forward." Later that night, Jessica and I sat in her office with a bottle of champagne. "We did it," she said, raising her glass. "You did it, Ethan." I clinked my glass with hers. "We did it together." She set her glass down and looked at me intently. "Ethan, I think it's time we had that conversation." My heart rate quickened. "I agree, these past months working with you. I've never met anyone like you, Jessica. Your strength, your determination, your integrity. I've developed feelings for you." I reached out and took her hand. "Jessica, I feel the same way. You've been my rock through all this. I don't know what I would have done without you." She smiled, a brilliant, genuine smile that lit up her face. "So, what are you saying? Are you ready for a new beginning?" I leaned in and kissed her gently, sweetly. "I'm more than ready." Life seemed to settle into a new normal. Everything had changed. Then, on a quiet Sunday morning, Sam called me. "Ethan, turn on the news now." I turned on the television and my jaw dropped. Laya was standing outside the prison, surrounded by reporters. "What the hell?" I muttered. Jessica, who had been staying over, came to stand beside me. "What's happening?" On the screen, Laya began speaking. "I have new evidence that will clear my name and reveal the true criminal behind all of this, Ethan Cooper." I felt the blood drain from my face. What's she talking about? Jessica was already on her phone. "I'm calling the DA. This must be some kind of trick." But over the next few days, it became clear that Laya and David had one last card to play. They claimed to have evidence that I was behind the entire scandal, manipulating events to frame them. "This is ridiculous," I fumed to Jessica. "They're desperate. No one will believe them." But doubt had been sown. The media, always eager for new angles, began questioning my role in the events. Old friends started to distance themselves. Even Sam seemed unsure. "Ethan," he said one day, his voice hesitant, "you'd tell me if any of this was true, right? If you'd done anything." I looked at him, hurt and angry. "How could you even ask me that, Sam, after everything we've been through?" He raised his hands. "I'm sorry. I just had to ask." As the pressure mounted, I felt myself cracking. Had I gone too far in my quest for vengeance? Had I crossed a line somewhere? Jessica remained a steadfast supporter. "We'll fight this, Ethan," she assured me. "We have the truth on our side." But the truth I was discovering was a fragile thing, easily distorted and questioned. Everything came to a head one rainy night. I was alone in my apartment. Jessica had gone to meet with the district attorney when there was a knock on the door. When I opened it, I saw Laya standing there. "Hello, Ethan," she said, her voice cold. "We need to talk." I let her inside, my mind racing. What was she doing here? Laya paced the room, looking around with disdain. "How the mighty have fallen," she sneered. "What do you want, Laya?" I asked, my voice tight. She turned to face me, her eyes hard. "I want you to confess, Ethan. Admit it. You set us up. You manipulated everything." I laughed bitterly. "You're delusional, Laya. You did this to yourself. You and your friends." She stepped closer, her voice lowering to a whisper. "Are you sure about that, Ethan? Are you sure you haven't gone too far? That your rage, your need for vengeance, didn't push you to do things you never thought possible?" For a moment, just a moment, I felt a glimmer of doubt. Had I gone too far? But then I remembered the night I walked in on them, the laughter, the mockery, the complete disregard for my feelings. "Get out, Laya," I said, my voice cold. "You've lost. Accept it and move on." She gave me a long look before turning to the door, but she paused, looking back. "This isn't over, Ethan. Definitely not." After she left, I called Jessica. "Laya was just here," I told her. "She tried to get me to admit to setting them up." Jessica's voice was sharp, concerned. "Ethan, we need to be careful. They're getting desperate. There's no telling what they'll do." She was right. Over the next few weeks, Laya and David's accusations grew increasingly outrageous. They claimed I'd bribed witnesses, fabricated evidence, and even threatened people to testify against them. But their desperate ploy backfired as their claims became more ridiculous. People began to see through them. The the tide of public opinion shifted back in my favor. It all culminated in a dramatic court hearing. Leah and David's lawyers presented evidence that turned out to be nothing more than hearsay and conjecture. Jessica tore their arguments apart, exposing their claims as desperate lies. Finally, the judge dismissed their claims, charging them with perjury and attempting to pervert the course of justice. As we left the courthouse, Jessica took my hand. "It's really over now, Ethan," she said quietly. "You won." I looked at her, this incredible woman who had stood by me through it all. "No," I said, squeezing her hand. "We won." We walked down the courthouse steps together into a future full of possibilities. It had been a long, difficult journey, but I had emerged stronger. I'd exposed the truth, seen justice done, and found love in the most unexpected place. As we drove away, leaving the courthouse and everything it represented behind, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. The chapter of my life that began with betrayal and pain was finally over. A new one, full of hope and promise, had just begun. And this time, I was ready for whatever challenges might come.